Anger. We've all been there, right? That fire that just flares up inside you. It feels so powerful, so uncontrollable, and honestly, sometimes it's just plain destructive. We're always looking for the new thing to help, the latest app, the newest therapy trend, but what if I told you that one of the most brilliant guides to managing your anger wasn't written last week, but way back in the year 1600? Yeah, let's get into it. This idea that real strength isn't about conquering the world, but about conquering your own mind, it's ancient. And it's the perfect way to kick off our deep dive into this surprisingly modern wisdom about anger, all from a guide that's over 400 years old. So our guide for this journey is a book from 1600. It's called Spiritual Physic to Cure the Diseases of the Soul, written by a Puritan preacher, a guy named John Downemey. Now, I know what you're thinking. But trust me, this is not just some old sermon. It's actually a super detailed manual on psychological health. Downemey treats unjust anger like a disease, with real causes and real cures.
So how did Downemey even define anger? Well, he was incredibly precise about it. He saw it in two parts. First, there's the physical side, that heating of the blood about the heart the second you think you've been wronged. Then there's the psychological part, that appetite that gets stirred up to take revenge. So it's not just a feeling in your chest, it's an impulse in your brain.
And this guy went deep. Seriously, he wasn't just making stuff up, he was actually dissecting the original Greek and Hebrew words for anger. He points to the Greek thumos as that first flash of heat. Then there's arge, which is the desire for payback that comes next. And then the Hebrew word off, which literally means the face. Because, that's the first place you can see it on someone.
Okay, so this brings us to what is maybe the most important idea in his entire book. For Downemey, the point isn't to get rid of anger completely. No way. He says anger isn't automatically a bad thing. Instead, it shows up in two totally different forms. One that's actually good and necessary, and another that's corrupt and really, really dangerous. And the difference is just night and day. On one hand, you have just anger. He calls it a good servant, a tool that's actually useful for making things right. But on the other hand, you have unjust anger. And that, he says, is a bad master, a turbulent vice that just takes over and leads to chaos. Understanding this split is the key to everything else he talks about.
Right, so if some anger is actually good, when is it okay to get mad? Well, Downemey lays out some very specific situations where he says getting angry isn't just allowed, it's pretty much your moral duty.
He breaks it down into three things. First, having a zeal for a higher cause. Basically, seeing something you believe in get trashed or witnessing a real injustice. Second, it's okay to be angry when you yourself are unfairly attacked, defending your reputation or your well-being. And third, and this one is huge, getting angry for other people, for those who are being wronged or oppressed.
And just listen to this. He says that showing mildness when you should be angry is just as big a sin as showing anger when you should be mild. He's basically saying that standing by and doing nothing in the face of injustice is a massive moral failure. Apathy is not the answer.
Okay, so that covers the good anger. But what about the destructive kind? The disease he was trying to cure. Well, his breakdown of what causes it on the inside is, honestly, it's shockingly modern. It feels like you're reading a psychological profile written 400 years early.
So what's cause number one? He calls it self-love. Today, we'd probably call it ego, or maybe even narcissism. He says it makes us blow every little insult against ourselves way out of proportion, while we completely ignore all the ways we hurt other people. You become the main character, and every little slight is a huge plot twist.
And flowing right out of that self-love, you get pride. Pride makes you hypersensitive to any hint of disrespect. Downemey says proud people are very suspicious of contempt. Even the smallest thing, a comment, a look, gets interpreted as a massive attack on their reputation, and it demands an explosive response. Next up, he talks about covetousness. This is that deep-down, gnawing desire for more money, more stuff, more status. And when we don't get what we want, or we lose something small, our minds just fill up with this constant vexation. We basically become a walking tinderbox, just waiting for the smallest spark to set us off.
And this one is wild. He calls it vain curiosity. And you know what that is? It's his 400-year-old term for actively looking for things that will make you mad. He warns against this itching appetite to see and hear all things. Sound familiar?
It's basically doom scrolling for outrage, because as he knew even then, if you go looking for something to be angry about, you will absolutely find it. So after that spot-on diagnosis of the problem, Daosim starts prescribing the cure, and he divides his advice into two categories: preservatives, which are things you do to stop anger before it starts, and medicines, for when you're already seeing red. His preventative advice is brilliant because it directly counters the causes we just talked about. To fight that toxic self-love, you practice empathy. To take down your pride, you practice humility and really look at your own mistakes. To beat that vain curiosity, you have to make a choice to just turn away from the outrage bait. And finally, you meditate on the idea that everyone is imperfect, yourself included. It builds patience.
But what if it's too late? What if you're already in the middle of it? The anger has struck. What's the emergency medicine? Well, Down Alme has one single critical rule, and it's advice you have definitely heard before.
Deal with it, right now. His warning is so urgent. He says if you let your anger simmer overnight, you give place to the devil. Basically, it stops being a temporary feeling and hardens into real malice. The goal is to put that fire out, fast, before it burns everything down.
So what do we do with all of this? How does this 400-year-old advice, this spiritual physic, actually apply to our lives? You know, with social media notifications and road rage and everything else we deal with.
I think the most important takeaway is this. Taoism's wisdom isn't about becoming some kind of emotionless robot. It's not about getting rid of anger. It's about transforming it. The whole point is to understand this incredibly powerful force inside you, learn to tell the good from the bad, and get it under your control.
And this final quote just says it all perfectly. Anger makes a terrible master. You never want it to be in charge. But if you can make it your servant, guided by your reason and your sense of justice, it can be an amazing tool for making the world a better place.
And that leaves us with one last question to chew on. Today, we talk about triggers, emotional regulation, and ego. 400 years ago, Downame was talking about self-love, pride, and vain curiosity. So it makes you wonder, have we really gotten better at mastering this timeless emotion? Or have we just gotten better at renaming the disease?